some California. What about now? You sure?
I've been switched in that.
What about now? Better? We're live. Definitely.
This Zoom recorder is going to pick up every word you say.
But you mute it. Keep it muted until. French fries.
Evening for our presentation. My name is Kate Barrett. I'm the PTSO president for Albemarle High School, and it's good to see a little extra in the audience tonight. We're just gonna have a really quick 5 to 10 minutes to go over some PTO business before we start. Some of you probably figured we'd capture you before we get onto this, and then we're gonna get on to the important topic. We're really excited to have our special speakers here this evening to talk about JUUL Vaping and all the fun facts that come along with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started to give everyone kind of a summary of what PTSO does. So for those of you that are not familiar with us other than maybe an occasional email, we are centered around supporting the teachers, the staff, and the students, as well as the parents. So tonight would be a great example of supporting the parents. A big question is, what the heck is this JUULing thing? So we decided to have a little Q&A on it. A lot of what we do does not require us hawking any wares as well. We are a donation-only organization, so we may ask you for money occasionally, or donations of things like food for our teachers, or special resources that our students may be using or wanting to use. We also have a grant program that we support, so that's where the majority of our fundraising goes. And this is just to provide our teachers with an extra $200 in their coffer to support their curriculum that they have planned for the year. And that could be anything from software, extra books and materials. We've given out grant money for things like books in foreign languages, software programs for the math department to use, quadcopters for anyone that wants to take the robotics electives course, and the list kind of goes on. So each year that happens. You'll see an email if you're on our newsletter list that will come out in the next couple weeks, letting parents know that that's going to start this fall, and we'll start sending around the lists as the information rolls in. So if you feel moved to support a specific grant request, and we would love to take that support and pass it on to our teachers. We are missing a few, we're trying to fill a few spots on PTSO, so Laura Harrison has graciously stepped up to the plate for secretary. So If you are a parent, a student, or a teacher at Albemarle High School, you are a voting member. So I'm just going to ask for a quick vote. So for anyone that is in favor of voting for Laura Harrison as our as our secretary, raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Perfect. Motion passes. Yay! Yay, Laura. Okay, so we also have a few items just to report to you all. At the beginning of the year, we've thus far raised $620. 365 of that was just pure donations, and 255 will go towards our teacher events that we're supporting within the school on a regular basis. Our volunteer coordinator, who is Kristen Breen in the back, has a few items. Do you want to come up and talk about that real quick? We've got a few things coming up in the next couple weeks.
Yes, so parent-teacher conferences are October 3rd and 10th, and we are going to provide dinner for the teachers that night, since they can't leave the building. The 3rd, we're going to order pizza and also have salad, so I will be sending out a sign-up genius for people to sign up to either donate money for the pizzas or items for the salad. On the 10th, we will have a baked potato bar, which was very popular last year, so I will be also sending out a separate one for toppings for the baked potatoes. And then we were also, last year we tried this and it worked really well, and the teachers loved it. As we lead up to cold and flu season, we're going to do collection of tissues and hand sanitizer for the teachers, and you'll be able to, we'll have a table in the lobby, parent-teacher conference night, and you can just drop off the items there at the school and make sure teachers get that. Last Friday we provided coffee for the teachers for their monthly meeting, and so some of the $255 that Kate talked about was used for the coffee, and so we try to do a coffee and either bagels or donuts for the teachers, since they have to get there early for their meetings. I think that's all that's coming up.
Thanks, Kristen. To give a quick parent council update, it was really kind of just a come hither meeting for all of the new reps and also the principals and the PTSO or PTO presidents to show and gather and kind of discuss what topics might be of interest for different schools. If you have any topics that you want parent council to cover, they basically reach all the schools all at once, so they like to have special speakers that come in as well. Feel free to email PTSO here. It's Albemarle PTSO at gmail.com. You're welcome to send us any and all suggestions. And then Dr. Haas presented and gave us a little bit of an update on where things stand with the school. There is a bus driver shortage for those of you that are not aware. We have hired 181 new teachers this year, and for those of you that have children in more than one school, you may have noticed there's a few new faces in the administration, so lots of principals moving around or new ones coming in. And the biggest thing that Dr. Haas is focused on right now is also pulling in some help in the area of child nutrition, and also working on micro certifications for teachers so they can become certified in specialties that they're that pertain to whatever their curriculum is that they're teaching. And the anti-racism policy draft will be presented on November 18th by the student group to the school board if anyone's interested or is following that. There is a survey that went around on Blackboard also, and Dr. Haas would really love for everybody to fill it out. So it came out, I believe, a week ago. Let's see. For the SEAC update, which is the Special Education Committee, Director Kevin Kirst gave an update on the various resources and programs that run across the county schools. And you can actually go to the SEAC website on Albemarle County Schools website and download the minutes from that, because it would take me an hour just to list off all of the amazing programs that we have running. And just to give you an idea of statistics, the increase in special education students has gone up by 22%. That's an additional 323 students that fall under the special education. So that's all I have for PTSO. If there's anybody that wants to be, is really just dying to volunteer and join our board, we would welcome you. So the door is always open. We'd always love for you to be here. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to our speakers this evening. So we have 4 representatives from the Thomas Jefferson District Health Department who are going to talk to us about JUULing.
Okay, so I have a pretty loud voice, so is this too loud with the microphone? It's never too loud, I guess. But all right, so I'm Catherine Goodman. I am one of the, I'm the Public Information Officer for the Thomas Jefferson Health District. We are one of the health districts within the Virginia Department of Health. So we cover Charlottesville, Albemarle, Fluvanna, Louisa, Nelson, and Greene counties. And we are seeing JUULs and vaping has become, a hot topic district-wide and statewide and quite frankly nationally. And so we're happy to be here to talk to you guys about it tonight. And as we go, please ask any questions you have. We want to take this time to educate you guys and kind of inform you on what we know. We're also open to hearing what your experiences are, and if you have feedback on how, there's programs, if there's ways we can improve what we're working on with the students or anything like that, let us know. And I'll also point out too that we have over here, there's some handouts, and the PowerPoint presentation that we're going through, we did also put on this table, so printed copies, and we can also email this out. We'll get over some PTSO to send out to everybody. So, like I said, I'm Catherine, and then I'd like to also introduce Neely, if you'd like to go around and say
Hi, my name is Neely Dahl, and I'm the Tobacco Treatment Specialist at the UVA Cancer Center. Hi, I'm Allie Caprilis, and I'm a health educator at the Thomas Jefferson Health District. Hi, I'm Sally Goodman. I am new as of today, Regional Tobacco Coordinator for the region, so I will just be advancing the slides because I'm brand new.
a very important role though. So we're going to start off, the 3 of us are going to pass it around, talk about different topics, but like I said, please feel free to chime in with questions throughout. And Neely, you're going to kick us off.
Yes. This is great. Is it okay if I talk like this? It's okay?
Do you need the mic for
Oh, live streaming? Okay. Talking into like a microphone. I kind of want to start dancing and singing, right? No, you don't want me to do that. So what is nicotine? For a lot of you, for those that are maybe former smokers, those that are current smokers, or have friends or loved ones that are currently smoking, you know that it's very addictive. Nicotine is very, very, very addictive. And believe it or not, nicotine is naturally produced by the tobacco plant as an insecticide. And one of the things that's really fascinating about nicotine is when you take that puff, that nicotine comes up to your brain and it just hits those receptors and it's like releases that dopamine and you're like, ah, feels so good. I am a former smoker, so I know what that's like. And I actually started experimenting when I was a teenager. And one of the things that CDC is saying is that as you are starting to use nicotine at a young age, it's actually priming your brain for addiction. So public health has done a fantastic job in regards to educating youth and teens about combustible lit cigarettes and the harm of that. But now we're really seeing an uptick in regards to electronic smoking devices. You can go ahead and change. So as I said, nicotine is highly, highly addictive. In a lit cigarette itself, there's 7,000 chemicals in one lit cigarette. We know 270 of those chemicals can cause harm to your body in one form or another, and we know 70 of those chemicals are cancer-causing. And FDA did a research and they found out that within the vape itself, there's 62 cancer-causing agents within the vape pen. So there's a lot of debate about, is it healthier? Is it better? Well, no, it's not. It says here nicotine can be toxic, and what that means is that, especially for children and youth, those e-juices have lots of nicotine, high percentages of nicotine, and oftentimes if the children get it absorbed through their skin, they digest it, it actually can be very toxic to children. One of the things too that's really important to note is that, you can change the slide, that our brains are developing until the age of 25. And that's the prefrontal cortex of our brain, the ones that make sound judgment. And oftentimes we know that our youth and our teenagers are already at the point where they're not making the most sound judgments. And so one of the things that we really truly want to do is, as a parent, is to educate yourselves on what does it mean, and also pay attention to your youth, because as you have friends and family members who are withdrawing or they're having those cravings for a cigarette, those same kind of emotions, being cranky, having headaches, not concentrating, being moody, those are all signs that there could be nicotine addiction. But I'm going to talk a little bit later about some of the things and signs that you can look for with your youth later.
All right, now we're going to wake you guys up a little and test your knowledge here. So to kind of play some trivia, so just to give you background too, we go into the schools and do a lot of education in the different high schools and middle schools in the area, and this is always my favorite. So we do the same exact trivia with the kids. So let's see and test you guys and your knowledge. So looking at this, the first one, and so this is all about regular conventional combustible cigarettes. And you'll see as we go on, a lot of this is because we don't have a lot of data on e-cigarettes, JUULs, vaping, whatever it's called. There's a lot of different slang for it, and we'll talk about that in a few. And so this is kind of a great way to at least get us up to date on where we stand today with regular cigarettes, being that they are the most common product worldwide. But we'll start off. So what is the percent of smokers who start before the age of 18? Oh, and don't look at your PowerPoint. I forgot about that. Normally we don't pass them out beforehand. So yes, you're right. That was smart. You just knew it. So 90% of smokers start before their age of 18. On average, they're around 11 or 12 years old when they try their first cigarette. And that's really young. That's before we're even to the high school age with you guys. And so a lot of our work in public health is to try and prevent that side. And we're seeing similar effects when it comes to e-cigarettes, JUULs, vaping. So don't look at your PowerPoints. Tell me, the amount of people, the number of people who die each year from a smoking-related disease.
You know the Bob Barker's game where you go higher on the road? Throw out a number. Throw out any number.
20,000, 50%. It is 50,000. Higher.
Oh, higher.
Almost. Okay, so it is 480,000 people in the United States die each year from smoking-related disease. And out of this, about 40,000 are from secondhand smoke. And so we won't talk too much today about all the secondhand smoke, but you guys all, I'm sure everyone learns about secondhand smoke. It's a hot topic in the schools. Another thing we're also trying to educate on to now is the third-hand smoke. Has anyone heard of third-hand smoke? So, okay, I see some heads, some questions, like, huh? So the third-hand smoke is, let me put it this way. If you've ever seen someone who had just smoked a cigarette and you go to give them a hug, their coat smells, maybe their hair smells, that's the third-hand smoke. So that's the different toxic chemicals from the cigarette or from exhaling that are sticking to their clothes. If you go to someone's home and they have a room where they've smoked in for a long period of time, you'll see the walls are yellow, that's all the third-hand smoke. And so there's more and more research coming out to show us that third-hand smoke is pretty toxic, especially for babies and pets, because those are the ones who were, cuddling in our arms, they're the ones crawling on the furniture, on the carpet, and so that's kind of just a little side note. Not about JUULs though, so we'll get back to that. This next one is, so the number of people who die, this is actually a fraction, so the fraction of people who die prematurely from a smoking-related disease. And so to explain this a little further, on average, someone who's a lifelong smoker, on average dies about 11 years younger. And so that 11 years, one cigarette, they think on average cuts off about like 11 minutes of life. And so in this, out of all the smokers, what fraction of them do you think died prematurely from smoking? It's okay.
34.
All right, you can give us them too. A third, yeah, but that was close. So it's a third of smokers die prematurely from a smoking-related disease. And then we'll go down to the last one. So every day, blank number of kids try their first cigarette, and another 1,000 kids become a regular smoker. So it's about 4,000 kids. So every day, there's 4,000 kids who try their first cigarette, and another 1,000 who become addicted. And with this, like I said before, we don't have a lot of data on JUULs and vaping, but the data that we do have is showing that more students, the more likely they are to use regular cigarettes and conventional products, the more likely they are to use JUULs and vape pens and such. And so we're actually seeing that there's been an increase in dual use. So where we had before a concern of youth using cigarettes, they're now using cigarettes and their vape pens or JUULs, so they're getting almost twice the amount of nicotine. And this is just to show you guys kind of big picture if you have other questions. Like, we're here today just to talk about the JUULs and vape pens and everything, but this is a slide of all the different types of tobacco products. You know, another concern we'll be fine with youth is hookah as well. There's a lot of nicotine in there too. And so down here, this picture says ESD, and that stands for electronic smoking devices. And so that's what we're going to kind of dive into. Electronic smoking devices, you can see they're all over the place. Allie's going to talk about this. They have a lot of different terms. So it's JUULs, vape pens, you know, e-cigs, e-cigarettes. That's kind of the, you know, initial terminology was e-cigarettes, and then they formed into all these different generations. And so I'll pass this over.
So like Catherine was mentioning, e-cigarettes or ESDs have transformed over the years. They were only introduced in the US in 2006, so they're relatively new. And they first started off on the left-hand side looking very much like cigarettes, so they called those cig-alikes. And then second generations are the vape pens, which are these in the middle. And those are the ones that you would see more commonly in the adult tobacco users. And then they also became mods, which are these. And these are the ones that blow the big clouds of smoke, and you see sometimes like the smoke, like the cloud competitions that they have where people like try to make them blow as much smoke as possible to win money. And then more recently, we've seen the JUUL, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But just to go over in general the basics of all e-cigarettes and ESDs. So there are three main components that they all have. The first is the cartridge, and that's where the e-liquid or the e-juice is found. In the market today, there are over 7,000 different e-juice types, and they span from having flavors like cotton candy, bubble gum, cool mint, mango. You can name it, there's a flavor for it. And then there's an atomizer, and that's what actually heats up the e-juice into the aerosol that comes out of the e-cigarette, and then there's also the battery. And that's the same thing that is found in the JUUL. So there are three different components. Okay. So I just wanted to show you this, and we'll pass it around as I'm talking. So this is the JUUL pod, and this is where you find the e-liquid. There's nothing in here, so you can go ahead and touch it and play with it. And then inside here, you plug them in, and this is where the battery and the atomizer are found. And so that is what a JUUL looks like in real life. And then this is the charging. And that's what you plug into the computer.
Plugs into the computer, and then it charges like this, so it can look like a flash drive.
So we'll pass that around, so you all can look at it and take it apart and play with it. Next slide. So when that e-juice is heated up by the atomizer, it is not a harmless water vapor, which is what most kids are saying, but there's nothing wrong in it. It's actually an aerosol, and in the aerosol, when the e-juice is, there's a bunch of different chemicals in the e-juice, including like propylene, glycol, and diacetyl something or another. I can't name any of the chemicals, which is a sign that they're bad. So they become volatile organic compounds, fine particulate matter, there's nicotine in it, obviously, and then there's also heavy metals. And these are things that they have found in the aerosol that comes out of the e-cigarette or the electronic smoking device. And all of these things have been approved for consumption by digestion, but they haven't been approved for inhalation by the FDA. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen to youth who are using these for a long period of time in 10 to 20 years from now. So it's very much we don't know what it's doing to their bodies. For people to eat, so it's like the flavorings, yeah, for consumption, but it hasn't been not inhalation, yes. So the FDA is currently trying to figure out how to regulate them. So they started the process in 2016. We'll go over this again in a little bit, but they started the process for regulation in 2016. However, in I think it was 2017, they pushed back when e-cigarette companies had to submit the documentation until 2022. So they don't have to submit any documentation right now to be under any regulation until 2022. Yeah.
Yeah, so just a reminder is like the actual flavorings themselves. Actually, we can digest flavorings in our tummies. We're able to do that. But one of the things is when you heat up the flavorings, the chemical compounds change, and then those chemical compounds, now you're inhaling it deep in your lungs. Probably not the best thing to do long period of time.
So, like I passed the JUUL around, one of the things to note is that the nicotine concentration in a JUUL in the pod that you see is significantly higher than most other e-cigarettes, and it's equivalent to having the same amount of nicotine as a single pack of cigarettes, which is 20 cigarettes. And like I said, no long-term studies have been conducted, so they don't know what's happening to students. And 63% of students who are JUULers, which is the term that they use, don't know that JUULs contain nicotine. So they're using them without actually realizing that there's nicotine in it and that it's priming their brain for addiction. It is just the name that they came up with. I don't know. Yes, so yes. The JUUL brand is the brand and that's the one that's taken off in popularity. And then if you go to the next slide. Oh no. After this slide, there's a video. We're going to show a video about JUULs and like their brand and how they've gained popularity. But there's also other brands that they've started to see as popular with youth.
Not all of them. Some of the big tobacco companies kind of bought into this. Some of the big tobacco companies bought into the electronic smoking devices initially when they first came out, but now there's a lot more companies that are selling them and designing new products. And like JUULs, I don't think JUULs were made from one of the big tobacco companies.
So we'll watch a quick 5-minute video.
This is an ad for one of today's hottest products. If you don't look carefully though, you might miss what it's advertising. It's this little thing, and it's called
JUUL looks more like a flash drive or computer device, but it is really another kind of e-cigarette.
Since it launched in 2015, JUUL has taken over about 70% of the e-cigarette retail market share. It's now worth about $16 billion, and that success is often attributed to its sleek design. But the same features that make JUUL a well-engineered product also make it attractive to young people, many of whom have never smoked before. And that has people worried, because devices like JUUL might be designed to help smokers get off cigarettes, but they're also addicting a new generation to nicotine. So what makes this one e-cigarette so different from the rest? Answering that question starts with what you see on the outside. JUUL is an e-cigarette, but it really doesn't look like one. It looks like a tech product, and it's tiny. That allows smokers to get a nicotine fix without having to worry about social stigma, but also allows young users to consume nicotine inconspicuously without having to worry about who sees them.
Going to school, having this in your pocket is a lot better than having like something this big that looks kind of like a lightsaber. You could kind of JUUL anywhere in discreetness.
That discreetness is a big shift for e-cigarettes. Since the first patent in 1930, designs haven't been very subtle. The first generation of e-cigarettes mimicked the shape, size, and colors of traditional cigarettes, sometimes even with a fake light-up tip. The second and third generations focused on larger and more customizable devices with longer battery life and big plumes of vapor. Then came the JUUL, a stripped-down version with no buttons, no big plumes of vapor, and no complex refilling or recharging. And it comes in a variety of bright colors that set it apart from other e-cigarettes, which made it look like a tech product that young people were already familiar with. That is why people call JUUL the iPhone of e-cigs. And that similarity makes sense. JUUL's founders met at Stanford Design School, and one worked as a design engineer at Apple. They created the first e-cigarette that looked more like a cool gadget and less like a drug delivery device. This wasn't smoking or vaping. It was JUULing.
Yeah, like how grandmas have iPhones now, it's kind of like normal kids have JUULs now. Because it looks so modern, we kind of trust modern stuff a little bit more, so we're like, we can use it, we're not going to have any trouble with it, because you can trust it.
The tech aspect definitely helps people get introduced to it, and then once they're introduced to it, they're staying, because they're conditioned to like all these different products, and then this is another product, and it's just another product until you're addicted to nicotine.
And that is where it gets tricky. A 2017 study found that 25% of 15 to 24-year-olds recognized the JUUL in a photo, but the majority of them didn't know that it always contains nicotine. It's easy to trace that information gap. You just have to look at the ads. When you look at JUUL's marketing today, you find video testimonials from adult ex-smokers.
My name is Lauren.
My name is Brandon.
My name is Carolyn.
My name is Aman. I'm 38.
But when JUUL first launched, their marketing looked a lot different. When you put those ads alongside old cigarette ads, the similarities are pretty striking. Both marketed relaxation, sharing, travel, freedom, and sex appeal. It's now illegal for cigarette brands to use these kinds of suggestive advertising themes. But for e-cigarette manufacturers who had products on the market before 2016, those strategies are still unregulated. That's why a brand like Candy Pens can be promoted in DJ Khaled music videos, just like tobacco corporations used to pay stars to smoke their cigarettes on screen. But compared to cigarettes, JUULs are a lot easier to start using. Typical e-cigarettes have between 6 and 30 milligrams of nicotine per milliliter of vape liquid. One JUUL pod packs in 59 milligrams. That's 3 times the nicotine levels permitted in the European Union, which is why JUUL isn't sold there. But here in the US, e-cigarettes don't have the same restrictions, even though we know that nicotine dependency can prime developing brains for future substance abuse disorders. The company says that JUUL's nicotine content is about as much as a pack of cigarettes, though tobacco experts say it's likely more than that. And JUULs have a patented system for delivering that nicotine. Most e-cigarettes use a potent version of nicotine called freebase that gives users a strong hit. But JUULs vaporize a liquid made from nicotine salts. Those salts allow nicotine to be absorbed into the body at about the same speed as regular cigarettes, much faster than most e-cigarettes. But unlike freebase nicotine, which can be irritating, nicotine salt goes down smoothly. So JUUL packs a bigger nicotine dose into a much more pleasant hit than most devices on the market. And that has public health officials worried, because the US almost beat nicotine addiction among kids.
As cigarette smoking among those under 18 has fallen, the use of other nicotine products, and especially e-cigarettes, has taken a drastic leap.
In April, the FDA demanded that JUUL submit documents on its marketing and research. A group of senators sent a letter asking JUUL to stop using flavors and designs that appeal to children, and there are now 3 lawsuits alleging that JUUL contains too much nicotine. In response to the concerns, the makers of JUUL have pledged $30 million to combat underage use. Merchandise and marketing materials now have big warning labels on them, and the company is developing lower nicotine pods. The trouble is, there's still a lot we don't know about the long-term health impacts of e-cigarettes. JUUL, like other e-cigarettes, might have set out to design a solution to a public health problem, but in a lot of ways, their product has created a new one.
So there's a great video on what JUULs are and everything that they do. So these are just other JUUL alternatives that are now found in the market, and that I've actually talked to students throughout Virginia, and they've said that they've seen these at school. So the one here on the bottom is a bow. The one in the middle is a fix, and then on top it's a Soren, and they're all like very techy looking, and that's what's appealing also to youth. And like it said in the video, the JUUL is kind of like the iPhone of cigarettes. And these are, so a typical JUUL, like the starter pack goes for $50, and then these other alternatives are a little less expensive. So it makes it more accessible for everyone to have a cool vape device. And like we were mentioning before with the FDA timeline, so in 2016 they began the approval process, and then in 2017 they extended the deadline for people to submit their documentation until 2022. And then last week, the FDA declared vaping a epidemic in youth, and they've realized that, or there was a study, and it's unpublished still, but that there's been an increase in youth using them from last year to this year by 75%. So there's 75% more youth using it. The CDC. But it is unpublished, so I'm waiting for the real. So, and then there are also laws in Virginia that we think you all should be aware of.
Yes. And just something too to kind of tag on with 75% of our youth now turning to these electronic smoking devices, using nicotine, getting addicted to a nicotine, that actually, I believe it was CDC study that actually showed that youth are 4 to 6 times more likely to start smoking regular combustible lit cigarettes. So this is really just a generation that they're priming their brains, and it's going to be easier to possibly roll over and start smoking regular cigarettes. So we really just want to spend some time educating youth. And just on the Virginia laws, we do have the smoking in the vehicle law. Have you heard of this? Good. We're trying to just get out there and educate parents and grandparents and anybody who's riding in the car with a youth. If a cop stops you for speeding or whatever it may be, they can actually tag on an additional $100 ticket if you're caught smoking in the car with a child under the age of 8. Virginia has a very weak Clean Indoor Air Act. If you actually read it, and if you want more information on Virginia's Clean Indoor Air Act, it does not include electronic smoking devices. And so this is something too, we need to start talking with our legislators and politicians on this. Virginia's tobacco tax is actually the 2nd lowest in the United States at 30 cents per pack. We have a lot to do right now. I know we're trying to get out there and do some education to raise the tobacco tax in Virginia for up to $1. And then tobacco retailer's license, this actually does not even exist in Virginia. If somebody wanted to, they could actually pull up with a bunch of cigarettes in their trunk and sell them. And that's just like, we really need to change some of our Virginia laws when it comes to tobacco. And then e-cigarettes on school properties. There's definitely rules on that. So I guess that's about it.
So with e-cigarettes on school property, that's a new law that went into effect about two summers ago. I guess maybe I'm looking at the principal opening. And so that's a policy where e-cigarettes are actually banned on all school property, including school buses and on like Friday night football games style. So they're all school property. What's a little ironic about that is that there's not a comprehensive tobacco-free policy statewide. It is up to each school jurisdiction to determine what their tobacco-free policy is. So the schools and their jurisdictions can choose what those policies are. However, for e-cigarettes, there is a statewide policy on that applies to all schools. Does that make sense? So, and we can talk, if anyone has other questions, we can talk more about that. And we have another, I think for the sake of time, we'll keep going. And so to kind of pull into you guys, we would love to hear a little bit about, so I would, a raise of hands, how many of you have heard from your student or from your child or friends that they're JUULing or using vape pens? Okay, that's like almost everybody in here, yeah, half at least, 75%, okay. And have you guys heard certain things about them? What have you heard? Like what's the word for your students and children? Anything? Yeah, what'd you say? Started in middle school? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not addictive, doesn't have the nicotine in it. And I think that's what's so confusing about the JUULs is that there are some e-cigarettes that are branded as not having nicotine in them. However, since they're not regulated, we don't know if that's true or not.
And they actually CDC did do a test on a lot of the devices, and they might say that there's nicotine free, but in reality there are still trace because they are not regulated through the FDA. And I believe that I think the most recent stat I heard is that basically 99% of the products on the market right now have nicotine. So it really depends. And being able to be educated about that and being able to talk to your youth about nicotine and the addiction of it is really key.
All right, so you guys everyone can read up here to see. So the big thing that we're here tonight to educate you guys and to hopefully empower you to feel comfortable to have those kinds of conversations with your students or your children. As you'll see up here, there's kind of a few different things. So what I would say the 3 things you guys can do to address JUULs and vaping is to know the trends, the language, and the facts, the effects of them. So knowing the trends. This is one that Allie, gets to spend a lot of time at work looking at it on social media, but there's a whole hashtag for Do It for JUUL. And if you look at that hashtag on Instagram or on Facebook, any social media, check it out and see what's out there so you guys are aware of what students are looking at. The hashtag Do It for JUUL, there are tons and tons, hundreds and thousands of videos for this. And that's what kids at home are looking at before they go to bed on their Instagram and their Facebooks. And so it's a popular one. There was another one that just came out called Zeroing, for when people inhale and they hold it in.
Yeah, so it's essentially when you're inhaling and you just hold it in and hold it in until there's no smoke to exhale. So you're just holding in everything.
I wonder what's happening to your lungs then.
Yeah. So there's a lot of trends to know. The other thing too, and as I kind of put up here, is the JUULing versus vaping. As we've talked about tonight, JUULs are the USB looking product. But there are a lot of kids who will say, I'm not JUULing, I'm vaping. Or I'm not vaping, I'm JUULing. There's a difference. And so e-cigarettes are not the same as JUULs, which are not the same as vape pens. So just kind of being aware of the different language that's being used and what you're hearing. The other thing, of course, is knowing the facts on it. So knowing what we've talked to you guys about tonight with the nicotine and everything. And then finding the right moment for a conversation. So have any of you guys talked to your students or your children about it? Okay.
How'd that go?
Yeah, that's what I was
It actually went okay. The part was that I kind of started hearing about what other people are doing, which made me wonder how many parents are open to having that conversation. Because the kids are freely talking about it, but other kids know where the kids are getting it, how to go get it without an ID, flavors are the best. And so the other kids are talking, so even if your kid isn't doing it for now.
Yeah.
And this will be a regular conversation that we have.
And there's one of these handouts that if you guys want to grab one of these on your way, and we'll also email this stuff out, it kind of gives you some talking points for how to talk about it with your children. And I kind of listed a few different examples up here from what we hear and what we've had different research on, but if you're passing an e-cigarette shop or a vape shop, there's a lot of them in town. There's a few popping up down the road from here. So that's always a good time as you drive by. Just ask your student or whoever's in the car with you, hey, have you heard about vaping? Do your friends use it? Did you know that it has nicotine in it, which is really dangerous for you? And maybe finding something that's important to them. So are they in marching band where they need to have, great lung capacity to be able to play their instruments? Or are they an athlete or a singer? Or, just kind of looking at what their interests are. Some of it can be if they're interested in biology and science, asking them, have you really seen the chemistry behind nicotine? Look at how that's, working in your brain and the neurotransmitters, and kind of finding whatever is their niche and pulling it into that way, because nicotine and e-cigarettes is a pretty fascinating thing, and there's a lot of different ways you can relate it to a lot of different interests, and I think that's what's going to kind of pull in youth the most. The other things are, seeing an e-cigarette advertisement or hearing about if your children or if you guys hear about this in discussions with other parents about a student getting in trouble for it, that's also a good time to say, hey, I heard that so-and-so had an issue at school where they were caught with a JUUL. What do you know about that? Are you using them? And just kind of having an open conversation about it. The other thing, of course, is talking about the risks and remaining tobacco-free and following the rules. Isn't as exciting of a conversation to have with children, but they are banned in the schools, and so kind of making sure at least they know about the policy there. And leading by example, which is always so much easier said than done. It is tough. There are resources in the community for quitting smoking. Next slide. So this next slide has some examples of what you guys can say and different terms for it. And so in looking around, this first one, it says, getting off of nicotine is hard, but I'm so happy that I quit. Don't make the mistake that I did and get addicted. Smoking and tobacco use, including e-cigarettes and JUULs, are unsafe for young people. That sounds very scripted. But if you have this in an easy conversation, it's a little bit easier. And especially if anyone has been in that situation where they are a former smoker, or there's someone who's still trying to quit. You know, I mean, that's hard. And so it's a reality that we have to kind of face, is that, you know, while we might not be able to quit, we can at least work with children to prevent them from even starting. And some of the other, well, let's see, on this handout, there's a few other examples of quotes for what you can use. I think these ones up here I really liked and pulled from, and these are ones that have kind of been researched, these different phrases, to see how effective they can be. And the Surgeon General report suggests using these. These are kind of great ways to start that conversation. And I think
just overall, I mean, I think overall youth want to talk about it, but they don't want to make it personal. You know, so being able to have those open-ended questions, you know, motivational interviewing, and, you know, using all of that technique to really just encourage a conversation and a dialogue is key. And as an adult, I think it's really important, if you have friends and family that decide to use it as one of their quit aids, as an adult, you make an informed decision, but let's just not get our children or our youth addicted to it at such a young age.
They are illegal for under 18. Yes. Which is a whole other conversation too, on whether the stores are checking and things. And now I'll just point out, there's also 2 other flyers that are a great resource. This flyer on the top lists everything about JUULs and kind of an outline of what we've talked about, so something to take home and use and reference. And the other one is a little bit more about nicotine.
Yeah, I have a question. Is it possible for young people to purchase a JUUL online?
Yes, they can purchase online, and so whether that's using someone else's ID or just typing in a birth date from the 70s, so they can. They're not checking in all of that, unfortunately.
All of this, these conversational skits, okay,
yeah.
Not in record, so it was also legal.
Oh, right. Yeah. And that's a very, you know, valid point, is that, you know, it's not legal under 18, it is legal after 18, and that's, you know, where we kind of, there's some states and places that have made tobacco 21 a rule, where you have to be 21 years old to use any type of nicotine-deriving products. It's not the case here, which is hard. Especially, we have a long way to go in Virginia, but especially when there's 18-year-old students that are maybe in the same school as someone who's, you know, 15 or 16.
That's a great question.
We do it through the health and PE. There's a smoking unit, I guess, for a lack of better words. JUULing is so new that there's been a piece on smoking even when I was in school, right? But the issue with the JUULs now is it's so new that that's one of the areas that I would like for the health and PE teachers to actually move into. I mean, I think they still need to cover cigarettes and all that, but a piece with JUULing, and that's one of the reasons why I asked the ladies to come in, because most of my people here totally not really clear on what it is and what it can do to your body. So I do want to connect my PE teachers and health teachers with these ladies to help them communicate that with the students. And of course, you know, Jim, the health and PE is our courses that are taken in 9th and 10th grade. So it's good to have that type of lesson very early on in their high school career. So, well, one of the things, you know, years ago, what we typically would do was, if a student was smoking, we would suspend them, turn it over to the police because that's a citation. But now it's so rampant that this summer I had decided that I really did not want to suspend children for JUULing or even smoking. I'm more concerned about the education around it. So what happens is that they actually are allowed to come to school, and I've put in place a new program for us. It's actually something that's been used at the middle school level called STEP, and the children come for about a half a day, and they do their schoolwork, but also there's a restorative practice piece there where they get a chance to talk with a counselor here in the building about juuling and what it can do to them, and just trying to bring about some awareness. Because now all of a sudden it dawned on us that if we suspend them, then they're probably at home juuling all day long. You know, I don't know why I didn't understand that back in like 1998 when I got into school administration, but it took me all these years. But yeah, so you know, parents at work and they're just at home juuling until they can't juul anymore. You know, so they might as well come to school. Yes.
So I have a question related to that. I understood last year that it was the policy of the athletic department that if you were caught juuling, you are off the team. So
Well,
I suggest that we reconsider that exactly to that point. Because kids that aren't at practice are home working on their addiction.
Right.
And I think that is the policy of the department. And maybe that's an incentive to get kids not to do it because they're afraid they're going to lose their spot on the team.
Right.
It's a little bit, you got to figure it out. Maybe they come to practice, but they don't play.
Right, and I think you make a great point. And because we have three comprehensive high schools, their decisions like that are made at a different level versus like if this was the only high school. So there is a place to take that concern, and I think that's something that we do need to address, because typically the more children are not in school, it kind of just gives them an opportunity to do stuff that we don't want them doing and the parents don't want them doing. Yes, ma'am, but then you.
So the question we had was about the use of CBD, which basically, our son said, don't worry, it doesn't have nicotine in it, it's fine, it's good for you. And so we didn't know anything about it, we lost credibility, so I don't even know what that is. So they all have nicotine in them. And so I was like, I gotta find out more in the vape shop, and they had a counter that was as big for the CBD section as it was for the nicotine one, and they had it in every flavor. And the first thing the guy said to me, well, you know what, the nicotine one, these are perfectly safe, they're used by people with headaches, for stress, they're all good for you, they can't hurt you. And he gave me almost the same exact thing I heard from my son, word for word. There's no downside. Basically, they'll make you feel relaxed a little bit, they don't hurt you, and it's the exact same feel. And as I say, the counter for that one is exactly the same size as the other one, so they must be sound like hotcakes.
So CBD oil, for those of you who aren't aware, does not have THC in it. So it's derived from hemp, but it does not have THC in it, and it has been approved for medicinal purposes. And so it's very different, obviously, than juuling and the nicotine inside of it. And there's not a ton of research on it either, but it's something that we can look at for more information and get that to you afterwards.
I was surprised when I searched it. I can understand why you got one.
Yeah.
Thousands about the health benefits, all about the and it was very hard to find anything negative about it on the search engine. The only thing they came up with was that in North Carolina, some of these kids that used too much of it ended up in hospitals for another one in another state. But it didn't say anything that would be helpful. And so I had a time even having a discussion.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where, and we can look at some information for you and send something back if we can get your info afterwards. And I think that's where it's a conversation of, if you had two JUULs sitting on the counter, would you know the difference of which one had the nicotine in it and which one was just CBD oil? Probably not. And so I think in that situation, that's the only argument I can really think of, or kind of education to use in that sense. But that, CBD oil is very separate, and because it doesn't have THC in it, and I know it's legal, so, and I don't know all the policies for it, do you guys? No. Exactly, you don't know what's in it either. Yeah.
Well,
And we'll look up info for you and find something.
I mean, again, as an adult, we make informed decisions, educated, but at the same time, it's just really important. Their brains are developing, and their lungs are developing, and long-term effects of this is probably not the best. And so we just want to prevent as much as we can the start and uptake of abuse.
Is there any information on how long it takes to go through a pod? You mentioned that one pod is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes, and many youth who
so, and I think it depends really on how much they're inhaling. There are a lot of trends out there and stuff to inhale longer, you know, and so the longer you inhale, the more nicotine you're inhaling. And we were just, I think, is it about 1 a day people go through?
I've even heard stories of 1 or 2 pods a day because, you know, they can hide it. They can do it anywhere. They don't know. And so I think it's really important as, you know, if something doesn't feel right, you know, with your youth, take a look, find out what's going on. I think I was talking with one of my colleagues there at the Cancer Center, and we were talking about what are the signs of addiction with our youth, and what it's very similar to the signs of when there's an adult. You know, how much are they using, if you can find out? You know, how much truly are they using? And, you know, how quickly do they start using it in the morning? Do they roll out of, before they even roll out of bed, they're, you know, puffing on it? Or, you know, how, and it's just important to think about those kinds of questions. Also, do they use it when they're sick? You know, if they got sick and their lungs are not feeling well. And a sign of a true addiction is when you're not feeling well and you're sick and you're still puffing on it, that's it's definitely a sign.
Hi, I'm actually a student at Albemarle. I'm a senior, and like I'm just like hearing you guys talk about it, and like I have friends who go through like 3 pods a day, and like it's like kind of scary because like we call them fiends, and like I love my friends, but like a bunch of them do it, and I don't JUUL. I've never owned a JUUL. I just think it's like kind of gross, but we call them fiends because like when they run out of a pod and when they don't have a pod, they'll like start shaking and they'll like literally pay you a bunch of money just to like hit your JUUL, and they'll like do whatever it takes and be like, can I please hit your JUUL? Can I please buy a pod? And like seniors make a bunch of money off the freshmen because they will sell a JUUL for, I had a friend who sold a JUUL for $200 to a freshman and like was so excited, and it was like, you just made $200, and like to this freshman who like just really wanted a JUUL to like really fit in, but a bunch of kids just get fake IDs and they make a bunch of money off of buying pods for other people and selling them for higher prices. But it's like really scary because everybody has a JUUL and like everybody's addicted, and people go on JUUL breaks and like you'll see like 8 guys just walk into the bathroom and you're like, they're going to JUUL. But I'm just like, as an Albemarle high school student, like a lot of people have one, and like kids will literally sit in class and like have it charging in their computer, and like nobody notices or like nobody says anything, and like it's just a very, and it's at every school. But I will say that like Albemarle, like my friends from CHS will text me and be like, we heard Albemarle's like getting stricter on policies, like people are getting caught because like at CHS, like they like on other schools on like on social media they post about Albemarle and like how we're getting stricter about it, because like at CHS and stuff, like you can do whatever you want. But I just thought I'd add my 2 cents in.
It's hard, you know, it's really hard to catch and trying to educate our staff. Many of our staff members just, I mean, they just don't even know what it look like, so they thinking it's nothing, you know, it's just something that the children have, and they just keep on doing what they're doing. And I mean, it's tough. I told somebody the other day, I mean, some of the children are so bold, or they are so addicted that we have a bathroom right outside the kitchen area, which is connected to the main office, right? So sometimes I come in through the office, and apparently we have some children who enjoy the grape flavor, but it smells like burnt grapes, right? So whenever I smell that burnt grape smell, I run to the bathroom because I know I got them, right? I get in there and there's no one in there. You know, I mean, they just, I mean, it is very, very difficult to catch the students. Now you have some clothing that accommodates it. There are hoodies now where you can stick the pod. There's a pocket in the hoodie, and the kids can just do like that in class. And I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's running us ragged. You know, just trying to catch them. So, and I know that you had your hand up.
Well, I was curious how many kids have been caught JUULing at least last year.
You know, if I had to add up with all the JUULs that we confiscated and gave to the police and all that, I'm thinking, and my admin team might have to help me, maybe we confiscated 10-ish between all of us. Was it more than that? Okay. That's this year, okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, they do all the discipline unless it's something ridiculous, so I don't know. But yeah, I know I have one in my desk that I do, you know. But it's it's hard, and some of the children have food. Our parents, you know, or their grandparents, they stay with them, and they say, "Oh, it's nothing to it," and it's just it's been difficult. It's been much more trying to deal with than cigarettes, because I've been in the business long enough when, you know, students would still try to smoke a cigarette in the bathroom, right? But it's not like that. It's very difficult to keep up with and to really know what's going on.
So what are the physical signs? And like, I knew this was social company this long and stuff. Like, you're smoking marijuana, your eyes on waxing, you know, you're hungry all the time. What does a parent look for? Because boys and girls sound visual. Like, what are we looking for? If you're addicted, of course you got shake. But what about a person who's doing a occasional? How do we figure it out as a parent? Let's take all of your hardware and figure out like what's going on.
That's a really good
tracking
question.
cell phone and what else? Like,
And also look into their highlighter pins, you know, the yellow highlighter pins, you can stick them in there, you know. Yeah, it's amazing what you can learn online on the World Wide Web. That's a really good question in regards to like the casual nicotine use. I think, well, I was again with my colleague today, so many signs of addiction it can be easily written off as just being a teenager. You know, lack of sleep, lack of concentration, moody, what other things did she say? Headaches, being cranky. You know, that's a teenager. They're all of that. But being able to really just tap in, I think that's where if something's just not feeling right, you're noticing behavior changes. I think that's the key, is just to stay in tune with your child and with your, you know, your friends, your child's friends even, you know, because if you're seeing behavior change within their friends, that's something to start having a conversation with. Yeah.
Do you know, I don't know, if they, now, this is the crazy part, because we are a one-to-one school, right? So we give every child a device to charge up the JUUL. So, do we know if a student uses a computer to charge up the JUUL? Is it anything that can be tracked? Like, can we, because I don't know, I've never seen, I've never, but I was just thinking if it was, that we could always, you know, we could.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Do that, yeah.
I haven't heard of anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it treats it like a USB. It's like a USB. That's how kids get away with it, because it looks like a USB.
So it'll show up in like in the column.
But just like a USB.
Just like a USB.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to install or anything. You
Just-
know, some
right,
USBs have
yeah.
to install.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm kind of a tech person, so when you plug it in, all it's doing is drawing power from the USB port, so it's not going to show up as a recognized device or anything, or even a USB, because it's not installing any drivers to the computer.
Right.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So, if you recognize that you have a problem with your child with these devices, what resources are available to help you help you? Where do you go? Who do you contact? Who's available?
That's a great question, because that was one of the conversations I had with my colleague today, because I work with adult patients, right? Getting over the addiction of nicotine that you've been using for years is very difficult, and we have 7 FDA-approved NRTs that we use with adults. So we were talking, and we actually contacted some specialists in the field, and they actually said that, again, depending on the use, if they're really, really high level use and like how much are they using, if they're doing it in the morning, if you're finding that they're doing 2 or 3 pods a day, that might be a point where you need to talk with your primary physician and then look at some of the nicotine replacement therapies, like the gum, the lozenges and such. But that's not the first line that we want to do. What the first thing that you want to do is do some cognitive behavioral therapy, and I think sometimes what you were talking about with your classes and stuff, and being able to really focus on that bit, because really looking at the addiction and trying not to use NRTs is the first line, but depending on how much they use, then you've got to talk with your primary care physician, and then let's look at gum or lozenges or other means to break their habit and their addiction. It's not ideal, but that's why research is just not keen, again, on providing even clean nicotine options for the developing brain.
Another good resource too is all the schools in the area have an SAP, so Student Assistance Program Coordinator, SAP. They're a position that's staffed by Region 10, and they'll be in the schools, and so they're a person that can be a great resource for this. They're working on prevention, substance use prevention, mental health, all of that, and so that's a good person to contact at the school, which I'm sure we can get that info out too. And then also the regular counselors at the school too. And so we, like the health department, we work very closely with Region 10 on all of these types, this education and stuff, so we all are in the loop on what information is out there, and we're sharing resources. And so the PowerPoint stuff that we have today, we're actually meeting with a whole group of other agencies on Monday to talk about it and make sure everybody has the same info. But I think that SAP coordinator is a really good place to start, because they can then connect you and decide on, they'll do the worksheets and kind of the conversations to determine, is this really an addiction, is it a phase, what is going on, and kind of find the next resource and pull the parents in if needed as well.
Are middle schools receptive to this presentation? Because it seems like that would be get them before they start.
So a lot of the prevention, like evidence-based prevention programs for cigarettes, we don't know if those are going to be evidence-based for JUULs and e-cigarettes, because it's technology. It's so different than regular e-cigarettes that all the things that we've done for the past couple decades to lower the smoking rate, we don't know if that's going to work for all of this. But we are out in the schools doing it though. So in middle schools, and so I know like Jack Jewett's a school that funnels in here, and Allie and I went there in the spring and we presented over for I guess they're like little video news, their broadcast news or something. We were on there for 15 minutes talking about JUULs and vaping on their broadcast news to at least educate all of the students. And so I think it's just kind of we're working and we're actively looking to see what type of prevention programs will work for this. And there was some research that just came out actually last week, great timing for this presentation, for us to see the different types of prevention programs and what we can do in the schools. And so we're trying to put some presentations together.
Public health, it never ends.
Always something.
So, because the design of the JUUL seems to be made so it's less obvious, so you kick around so they're not seen. The flavors that they seem to have are kind of blatant and obvious. Do they have some that are more subtle? Like, so if we have someone that's maybe not using it so much, but they're in their bedroom, use it, we want them to not know?
Yeah, I mean, some of them don't really smell that strong. Some of them smell, like you said, the grape flavor, you know where it is and you run for it. Some of them are definitely very obvious and some of them are not obvious at all, unfortunately. So it makes it hard. And that's where kids I think are doing it in school bathrooms and sometimes in classrooms and things, because you don't smell it as much. I mean, there is nicotine testing.
So, yes, there is like drug tests that are a higher panel that actually will show up as nicotine. My mom is in a field. I haven't been, but where she is, and you can just go like I'm pretty sure you can pick them up at a place that sells drug tests, and it will show up. You can get them to show up as for nicotine.
And I don't know that, but I know that there are blood tests that can be done, because some businesses that have tobacco-free or nicotine-free policies might do blood tests or whatever for their employees. I don't know about the other ones though, but it's kind of hard to tell though. It's very tricky.
administration doing that, or do teachers feel empowered to take it if they do see them? I mean, I know now that not all of them have smell, but if a teacher sees a kid, do they feel empowered to go and talk to them?
They're supposed to. Just like if a student was in the room and just started smoking a Newport, I mean, you wouldn't allow the child to stay in there smoking Newport, you know. So my expectation as their supervisors that they would address it. Now, if they choose not to address it, then that's an issue. And then obviously, if I find out, then I deal with the teacher. But yeah, it's not really a if they want to address it or not.
Well, because my son has just said that kids do it all the time, and
Yeah.
my
Well,
mom's
it's
always,
it's very hard to catch because it's not much. The smoke dissipates very
but
quickly.
even if they have one charging, and the teacher
Yeah.
notices it.
But when you have 25 children in the room and you're sitting in the
they
back,
walk around more often.
you know, you're sitting in the back and you don't even know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, because we have teachers who don't know what it looks like. I mean, they don't know what a JUUL looks like. They don't smoke. They don't have friends who smoke. Their children are 35 and have been away from home for 25 years, whatever. I mean, they don't even know what it looks like. So that's part of the problem.
Next staff meeting.
Yeah, we've already talked to the staff about I mean it's an ongoing issue. I was talking with with a doctor who had children who went through here and he didn't even know what it looked like. I mean, so it's not as common as people think it is. So if a teacher did walk by it, it's not uncommon for them to think that it's something that's supposed to be in the computer. You know, it's not like having a pack of Newports on your desk, right? Teacher knows what that is, but they just it's still very new to a lot of people.
Well, USPs aren't sitting like this.
Well, but some teachers don't. But some teachers don't know what's new.
They can just use a little battery,
Yeah.
It's a very bold problem. If they do
Yeah.
that, they can easily palm them. So if you're not actually paying attention to that particular child's fitness and put it there, you may not, because there's no focus, but it's actually much harder to catch in the classroom than one kid.
What's to stop it? I mean, that's like saying, God is you, right?
Well, here's the thing, and not to get really technical. I mean, the state of Virginia allows me as a principal, I can suspend children up to 10 days. That's as much as I can do. So I could suspend them for 10 days, right? Now, with it being illegal, I'm not the police, right? So the police can obviously charge them. Now, whether or not it would ever go to court, which it probably wouldn't, because there's a huge concern about the school to prison pipeline. You're going to be hard pressed to find a judge that's going to lock a child up in detention. You know, so the issue is that it's illegal, but at that point, that's not in my wheelhouse. I can deal with them here at the school, whether I'm going to try to keep them in school and educate them, or am I going to put them out? But even if I put them out, I legally can only put them out for 10 days. That's as much as I can put a child out for now. Right. And then there are other people. Superintendent can put children out for a longer period of time. School board can put children out for 365 days. But I'm not allowed to do that. Okay, so yeah. We'd just rather have them. And especially with being in an urban setting. And I grew up in Charlottesville, so I went to CHS. So being out of school meant you could do a lot of things. Wasn't like you open up your door and it's just woods. I mean, you open up your door, you can go to the park, you can go to the mall, you can go hang out in another neighborhood. So putting these children out and just letting them roam the streets for 6 hours, this is not that setting. And there are some schools in the district that children may be, 30 miles away from town. So if they're out, they're just out of school and they're at home in the woods, but not our children. I mean, they possibly would get into something else if they're not here with us. So we try to partner with the parents unless it's an infraction that really requires some separation from school, we try to keep them here because we know that for some of the parents, they just pull their hair out thinking about what their children are doing when they're at work and they're at home all day. So.
I kind of want to take what's in the canister and just pour it on a coffee filter and show, because the stuff that's in there looks like molasses, it's black and, you know, and kind of like they don't see that, they see the white smoke and they see this neat design, and I just kind of want to say, you know, like each one of those is, it just, I remember those, I don't know, I guess I'm aging myself, but they had those horrible smoking guys, where they had the lungs and they showed how brown they got. I'll never forget those ugly smoking guys.
Well, and that's where a lot of what we say is like, do you want to be the generation that finds out what the long-term health effects of this are? Right? You know, and kind of empowering them in a sense to say, you don't have to find it out, but if you use this throughout, you know, throughout your entire high school duration, like you could be the person who finds out what the long-term effect is. You don't want to take that chance.
I was going to say, I think you guys make such a good point, and I don't think in the work that we do that we can forget it, is their brain, their frontal lobes are not developed for 25, so when we're saying this, all of this to us makes perfect sense. Like, I don't want to be the generation that this happens to.
Right.
They're not, they don't have the ability to even rationalize like that, right? But yeah, I mean, we can think, yeah, it's a great idea. And so that's what I, like, honestly breaks my heart a little bit when you do work with some of these kids, because number one, they are addicted. Their brains are being stimulated so that they are stimulated by something. I had a kid in my office who had been doing it over the summer, and he said, I'm sorry. He says, I'm trying to get off of it, but I have all these classes. I have AP classes. I have these tests. Like, I don't want to be, I can't bring it to school to just try to wean myself off. Like, it's real. So it's really real for some of these kids, and their frontal lobes aren't there. And so the scariest thing for me is it's addiction, and that can carry on forever into other substances once your body depends on being stimulated. And I think it's just hard for adults for us to sit here and think, oh, well, why don't they understand this? Because a 2-year-old can't really get through their life, right? You know, and it's okay developmentally. They can't do that part yet either, so it's really hard to meet them there. And so I think all we can do is have conversations and not make them feel like horrible people for doing it, but trying, because they just don't have that ability to rationalize yet.
They don't know. And a lot of people who try their first cigarette at age 11 or 12 or 13 or even 14, they don't know that they're going to be smoking in 50 years. You know, and so that is a hard thing. Like, you're right.
And this is much more appealing. We don't have to smell like nasty smoke. I don't have to like inhale something that tastes horrible. Like, I can do it really pretty easily, you know?
It's the same thing that cigarette companies did years ago too, when they were flavored, and that's how they sucked everyone in. And then they get in the flavors, but by that time, half of America was already addicted. And so it could be the same thing. And so we're hoping it won't be.
Yeah. The big poster on the vape store says it's not vaping, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah. It's the marketing, yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful picture of this guy in the country, and he's just.
Yeah. It's turned into a culture. That's what they're trying to do. Yep.
And I think that's where a lot of the most effective prevention campaigns that are out these days are where they tie into what the student is interested in. So they're not even looking at the demographics. It doesn't matter what race you are, what age you are, it's what you're interested in. So, you know, are you a 15-year-old that's interested in hip hop? Is it, you know, the alternative music scene? Is it that you're, you know, whatever it might be, you have to kind of find what it is that they're interested in, and then, you know, pull from there and kind of, you know, use some of that as the momentum to say, you know, maybe this is why you shouldn't be using it, whatever it might be. And as you guys have other questions, I mean, our info's up here, but please feel free to email us and let us know. You know, we're here to help as a resource. We've got this handout. There's a couple handouts for you guys to take. There's some links on this bottom one. There's a little thing about what parents and caregivers can do, but we're here to help try and be a resource for you guys, at least, to give you that information as you need it. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And I would like to thank all the parents for coming out. We really appreciate it. Thank you to the PTSO. We're really trying to connect and make sure that we bring any type of information or sessions that parents find interesting to them. Thank you to my students who were streaming tonight and the broadcast teacher. Thank you all so much.